Commander Marcus Chen checked the navigation displays one more time. Everything looked perfect. The small scout ship called Perseverance was 3 days away from reaching the Galactic Concordate's main diplomatic station. Marcus had been chosen for this mission because he was calm under pressure and good with words. Earth needed both qualities for their first real attempt at joining the galaxy's main government body. The ship was small, carrying only Marcus and 5 other crew members. They had food, water, and fuel for 6 weeks. The journey should take only 2 more weeks total. Marcus felt good about their chances. Humanity had been traveling between stars for almost 30 years now, and this mission would prove they were ready to sit at the table with older, more advanced species. The alarm started screaming at 300 ship time. Marcus jerked awake in his cabin and rushed to the bridge. His pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, was already there, her face pale in the red emergency lighting. "3 ships just dropped out of nowhere," Sarah said, her fingers flying across the controls. "They're not responding to hails. They're not in our database." Marcus stared at the tactical display. 3 massive vessels, each one 10 times larger than Perseverance, had formed a triangle around them. The ships were ugly things, all sharp angles and dark metal, covered in what looked like weapons ports. "Try all frequencies," Marcus ordered. "Tell them we're a diplomatic vessel from Earth, traveling through neutral space." Sarah sent the message. They waited. Seconds turned into minutes. Then a response came through, but not in words. A powerful energy beam lanced out from the lead ship and struck Perseverance's engine section. The whole ship shuddered. Alarms wailed as systems began failing. "They're boarding us!" shouted Chen Park, their engineer, from the back of the bridge. "They just burned through the hull in 3 places." Marcus made a decision. "Send the distress beacon. Everything we've got. Location, situation, ship signatures if you can get them." Sarah launched the beacon just as the bridge door exploded inward. Smoke filled the air. Through it came creatures Marcus had never seen before. They stood on 2 legs like humans, but were covered in thick gray-green scales. Their heads were elongated, with 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern. Each one carried weapons that crackled with energy. One of them pointed at Marcus and spoke in a language that sounded like grinding metal. A device on its chest translated the words into English. "You are now property of the Jothic Dominion. Resistance means death. Cooperation means life. Choose." Marcus raised his hands slowly. Around him, his crew did the same. They were scientists and diplomats, not soldiers. The Perseverance had no weapons beyond a few sidearms that wouldn't scratch these armored beings. "We're peaceful explorers from Earth," Marcus said clearly. "We mean no harm. There's been a misunderstanding." The lead Jothic made a sound that might have been laughter. "No misunderstanding. Your kind is perfect for the deep mines of Karathex 7. Strong enough to work, weak enough to control. You should thank us. We give your worthless species purpose." They were dragged off the Perseverance and thrown into a holding cell on the Jothic ship. Through a small window, Marcus watched as the aliens placed explosives on his vessel. Moments later, Perseverance exploded in a ball of white fire. Debris scattered into the black of space. "They destroyed evidence," Sarah whispered beside him. "They don't want anyone knowing what happened to us." But they didn't know about Earth's distress beacons. Those devices were built to survive almost anything, designed to drift through space, broadcasting their message until someone found them. 3 weeks later, that beacon was picked up by a Vree merchant ship. The insectoid captain recognized it as a distress call and, following Galactic Concordate law, relayed it to the nearest diplomatic station. From there, the message was sent to Earth. In Geneva, at the United Earth Council headquarters, the message played on every screen. Military officials, politicians, and scientists watched in stunned silence as they saw the sensor data. Perseverance had been destroyed. Commander Chen and his crew were gone. The Jathic Dominion was contacted immediately. Earth sent diplomatic messages requesting information about the incident. They offered to send representatives to discuss the situation. They promised there had been some mistake. The Jathic response came 12 hours later. It was brief. The creatures aboard that vessel are now workers in Dominion facilities. They are property under Dominion law. Your appeals are meaningless. Do not contact us again, or we will consider it an act of war. Your species is beneath notice. In the council chamber, people started shouting. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for economic sanctions or appeals to the Galactic Concordat. A few quietly suggested accepting the loss and avoiding conflict with a power that controlled 200 star systems. Then Director Sarah Okonkwo stood up. She was a tall woman in her 60s, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She ran Earth's Advanced Warfare Research Department, a division most council members knew almost nothing about. "I need to show you something," she said quietly. "Something we've kept secret for 50 years. She activated a secure holographic display. Images filled the air above the council table. Massive structures that looked like they belonged in nightmares. Weapons that could tear apart planets. Devices that could make stars themselves into bombs. During our first faster-than-light experiment, Okonkwo explained, we didn't just discover how to travel between stars. We found something. An ancient weapons cache, hidden in a pocket of folded space near Jupiter's orbit. We've been studying it ever since, reverse engineering it, building our own versions." The room was silent now. "These weapons are designed to destroy civilizations," Okonkwo continued. "Not armies, not fleets, entire civilizations. We kept them secret because we hoped we'd never need them. We wanted to join the galaxy as friends and partners." She closed the display and looked around the room. "But now one of our people has been taken. Our peaceful mission was destroyed without warning. We extended our hand and it was spat on. So I'm asking this council, what is a human life worth? What message do we send if we allow this to stand?" President Elena Vasquez, head of the United Earth Council, stood up slowly. She looked old suddenly, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "If we use these weapons," she said, "we become monsters. The galaxy will fear us forever." "Yes," Okonkwo agreed. "But they will never take one of us again. Ever. That's what we're choosing between, being loved or being safe." The debate lasted 18 hours. In the end, the vote was close, but it passed. Earth sent one final message to the Jathic Dominion. This time it wasn't a request. It was broadcast on every communication channel in the galaxy so everyone could hear. "This is Earth. You are holding Commander Marcus Chen and 5 other human beings. You have 72 hours to release them and all other slaves in your dominion. If you do not comply, we will erase your civilization from existence. This is your only warning." Across the galaxy, species who received that message laughed. What could this young, small civilization possibly do to threaten the mighty Jathic Dominion? Earth had perhaps 40 warships total. The Jathic had thousands. On Jathic Prime, in the great palace of the Dominion, the hierarch himself read Earth's message during his morning briefing. He was an ancient Jathic, his scales marked with centuries of honor scars. He laughed until his sides hurt. Then he ordered his guards to execute 5 random slaves in the public square, just to make a point. Not the humans, though. Those would be useful for negotiations if this upstart species tried anything stupid. In orbit around Jathic Prime, work crews barely noticed the strange readings their instruments were picking up. Ships were arriving at the edge of the system, spreading out in a wide formation. Only 40 ships, like the intelligence report said. But those 40 ships were carrying weapons that shouldn't exist, weapons that bent the laws of physics, weapons built from technology millions of years old. The 72-hour countdown began. Marcus Chen woke to the sound of someone screaming. He didn't know if it was day or night. There was no day or night in the labor camp on Jothic Prime. There was only work time and rest time, and the distinction barely mattered. His body ached. Every muscle felt like it had been beaten with hammers. Yesterday, or maybe the day before, he'd been forced to carry containers of refined ore from the deep mines to the processing center. Each container weighed more than a grown man. The Jothic guards didn't care if the weight was too much. They had shock sticks that made pain explode through every nerve. Sarah Rodriguez was in the cell next to his. Through the gaps in the metal walls, Marcus could see her sitting with her head in her hands. She hadn't spoken in 3 days. Something inside her had broken. The other members of his crew were scattered throughout the camp. Marcus had seen Lieutenant Park once, being dragged to the medical center. He was covered in burns. One of the other prisoners, a tall alien with purple skin and too many arms, had whispered that Park tried to fight back. The guards made an example of him. But the Jothic made a mistake. They put the human prisoners with slaves from dozens of other species. Those other slaves could communicate with the outside galaxy, and they talked. Word was spreading. Earth had sent a message, a warning, 72 hours to release everyone or face destruction. Most of the prisoners laughed when they heard. What could one small species do? The Jothic dominion was ancient and powerful. Earth was nothing. Marcus didn't laugh. He knew something others didn't. During his training for the diplomatic mission, he'd been briefed by intelligence officers who told him strange things. They'd said if anything went wrong, help would come. They'd said Earth was not as weak as it appeared. At the time, Marcus thought it was just reassurance. Standard protocol to keep diplomats calm. Now, sitting in this cell covered in bruises and dried blood, he wondered if those officers knew something real. On Earth, the 72-hour countdown continued. In war rooms deep under mountains and oceans, military commanders prepared for something humanity had never attempted before. Not a war, not an invasion, an execution. Admiral Chen Wei, no relation to Marcus, stood at the command center for the Terran Defense Fleet. The fleet was small compared to major galactic powers, but every single ship had been retrofitted with technology that made engineers wake up screaming. The ships themselves looked ordinary. Medium-sized cruisers, destroyers, a few carriers. But inside their hulls were weapons that violated everything humanity once believed about physics. The first were called stellar compression warheads. Each one contained a miniature artificial black hole, held in stasis by magnetic fields so powerful they bent space itself. When released near a star, the warhead would disrupt the star's natural fusion process, forcing the core to collapse inward at impossible speeds. The result was either a premature supernova or a sudden transformation into a black hole. Either way, the entire solar system would be destroyed. The second type of weapon was simpler, but equally terrible: cascading fusion igniters. These devices would inject specific isotopes into a star's outer layers, causing runaway fusion reactions. The star would burn thousands of times brighter, expanding and consuming its inner planets before exploding. The third type was still experimental. Only one existed. Scientists called it the Hawking device, named after the ancient physicist who first theorized controlled black hole creation. This weapon could create a black hole anywhere, regardless of mass or energy conditions. It broke the laws of thermodynamics. It should not exist. But it did. Admiral Chen Wei had tried to resign when she first learned about these weapons. She'd told her superiors that possessing such things made humanity worse than any alien threat. She was told her expertise was needed and resignation would be considered treason during a crisis. So now she stood in a command center, looking at a display showing 40 Earth ships positioned around Jothic space in a perfect sphere. Each ship carried enough firepower to kill billions. "Admiral," said her communications officer, a young man who looked like he might vomit at any moment. 24 hours remaining. The Jothic still haven't responded to our warning. They won't, Chen Wei said quietly. They think we're bluffing. Species in this galaxy have been bluffing for thousands of years. Threats are diplomatic tools. Nobody actually destroys entire civilizations. Are we really going to do this? The young officer asked. Sir, there are billions of civilians down there. Children. People who had nothing to do with capturing Commander Chen. Chen Wei closed her eyes. She'd asked the same question during the planning sessions. The response from the United Earth Council had been clear. We're establishing a doctrine, President Vasquez had told her. Something so absolute that no one will ever test it again. Humanity will never be seen as prey. We take one loss now, and tomorrow 10 other species will think they can capture humans for slaves or experiments or food. We end this forever, completely, permanently. By committing genocide, Chen Wei had said flatly. By ensuring survival, Vasquez replied. The galaxy runs on power. We tried to join peacefully. They took that as weakness. Now we show strength so overwhelming that peace becomes the only logical choice for everyone else. Back in the present, Chen Wei opened her eyes and looked at her crew. Young men and women from a dozen countries, united under Earth's banner. Some looked determined. Others looked horrified. All of them looked scared. Yes, she said, answering the communications officer. We're really going to do this, because the alternative is accepting that humans can be prey, that we're not worth protecting, that our lives mean less than maintaining galactic comfort. The hours ticked down. 48 hours, 36 hours, 24 hours. Intelligence reports came in from the Jothic Dominion. The hierarch had given a speech in the capital city, broadcast across all their worlds. He'd called Earth's warning the desperate threat of primitives. He'd promised his people that any Earth attack would be crushed easily. He'd ordered 5 more slave executions as a demonstration of Jothic power. Not humans, though. The hierarch was keeping the humans alive, probably thinking they'd be useful as hostages. He didn't understand that Earth wasn't negotiating anymore. 12 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours. Admiral Chen Wei sent coded signals to all 40 ships. Weapons were armed, targets were confirmed. Each ship had been assigned multiple stars in Jothic space. The attack pattern was designed for maximum simultaneous impact. In the labor camp on Jothic Prime, Marcus Chen felt something strange. The other prisoners were whispering. Something was happening in orbit. Ships had been detected. Not Jothic ships, unknown vessels. A Vray prisoner, one of the insectoid merchants who'd been captured for failing to pay docking fees, clicked his mandibles nervously. He'd been listening to smuggled communications equipment. Those are Earth ships, the Vray said, disbelief in his chittering voice. 40 of them. They're positioned all around Jothic space. What are they planning? It would take thousands of ships to threaten the Dominion. Marcus said nothing. He just stared at the ceiling of his cell and wondered if his government was really crazy enough to do what he thought they might do. 1 hour remaining. The hierarch was finishing another speech when his military advisors burst into the throne room. The Earth ships were doing something. Energy readings were spiking. They were preparing to fire. The hierarch ordered his fleet to attack. Hundreds of Jothic warships moved to engage. They outnumbered the Earth forces 20-1. They never got close enough to fire a shot. 30 minutes remaining. Marcus felt it before he understood it. A strange sensation, like gravity was bending in ways it shouldn't. The other prisoners felt it too. People were crying out in confusion. Then someone pointed at the sky. Through the atmospheric shield that covered the labor camp, Marcus could see the sun, Jothic Prime's star, a yellow dwarf not unlike Earth's own sun. It was changing color, from yellow to orange, from orange to red, growing brighter and larger in the sky. "They're killing the sun," Marcus whispered. "Oh God, they're actually doing it." The countdown reached 0. And Earth showed the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of when pushed beyond mercy. The first star died at exactly 0000 Universal Time. The Jothic home star, designated Target Alpha in Earth's attack plan, received 3 stellar compression warheads simultaneously. The weapons detonated in the star's corona, releasing their artificial black holes directly into the nuclear furnace. What happened next violated every natural law of stellar evolution. The star's core, which should have burned steadily for another 4 billion years, collapsed inward in a matter of minutes. The outer layers followed, pulled by gravity that increased exponentially with each passing second. On Jothic Prime, people stopped what they were doing and stared at the sky. The sun was shrinking, growing darker. But the darkness wasn't absence of light. It was something worse. It was a darkness so complete that it pulled at light itself, bending it, trapping it. Marcus watched from his cell as the Jothic guards abandoned their posts. They ran screaming toward the spaceport, fighting each other to reach escape vessels. The prisoners were forgotten. In the face of a dying star, slavery meant nothing. "We need to get out," Sarah Rodriguez said. She was standing now, her earlier trauma forgotten in the immediate threat of annihilation. "If that star collapses completely, the gravity will tear this planet apart." Marcus kicked at the cell door. It was locked tight. Around him, other prisoners were doing the same, screaming and pounding against metal that wouldn't give. Then the door exploded inward. Through the smoke came soldiers in armor Marcus recognized. Earth armor, the black and blue combat suits of Terran Special Forces. "Commander Chen?" one of them asked, his voice harsh through his helmet speakers. "Here," Marcus shouted. "We've got 6 hours before this system becomes permanently uninhabitable," the soldier said. "Everyone stays calm, moves fast, and maybe we all make it out alive." They weren't the only rescue team. Dozens of extraction units had dropped from orbit the moment the attack began, hitting labor camps and prisons across Jothic Prime. The mission was simple: get every prisoner out before the planet died. But there were millions of prisoners, and only hundreds of human soldiers. Marcus ran through the camp with Sarah and the others, following the soldiers toward a landing pad where shuttles were waiting. All around them, the world was coming apart. Buildings shook as earthquakes rippled through the crust. The sky was growing darker as the sun collapsed. They passed the body of a Jothic guard. He'd been crushed by falling debris. Marcus felt nothing looking at it. These creatures had tortured him, but they were still just people, and they were dying now, billions of them. The shuttle was packed beyond capacity. Marcus squeezed into a corner, pressed between Sarah and an alien with blue skin and gills that gasped for moisture. Through the window, he watched Jothic Prime fall away beneath them. The planet was beautiful from space. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked like Earth, home to an ancient civilization, architecture that had stood for thousands of years, art and music and literature, families and children and people who'd never left their home world, who'd never agreed to any of this. And it was ending. The collapsed star, now a newborn black hole, was pulling everything toward its event horizon. The planet's orbit was decaying. In a few hours, Jothic Prime would be torn into streams of matter and consumed. But that wasn't the worst part. The soldier who'd rescued Marcus sat down next to him. His helmet was off now, showing a young face with hard eyes. "You're Commander Chen," the soldier said. "The reason for all this." "I didn't ask for it," Marcus replied quietly. "No one ever does," the soldier said. He pulled out a datapad and showed Marcus a tactical display. "This is what's happening, right now, across all of Jothic space." Marcus looked at the display and felt his stomach turn. The map showed 200 star systems, each one marked with a red timer. As he watched, the timers counted down. When they reached 0, the star's icon changed from yellow to black. Stars were dying. Not just the home star. Every single star in Jothic territory. Earth wasn't attacking military targets or government centers. They were systematically destroying the ability of the Jathik civilization to exist. Some of them were collapsing into black holes, the soldier explained, his voice empty of emotion. Others were forcing to go supernova. A few were just cooking until they expand and swallow their planets. Depends on the star type and strategic value. Strategic value, Marcus repeated. There's no strategy here. This is extermination. Yes, sir, the soldier agreed. That's exactly what it is. Orders came from the top. Wipe out the Jathik completely. Make them a lesson. Show the galaxy what happens when you take a human. The shuttle jumped to faster-than-light speed, escaping the doomed system. Around it, thousands of other vessels fled in every direction. Some were rescue shuttles like theirs, packed with former prisoners. Others were Jathik civilian ships, desperate to reach safety somewhere, anywhere. But there was no safety, not in Jathik space. Admiral Chen Wei watched the attack unfold from her flagship. Her screens showed live feeds from all 40 Earth vessels. Each ship was doing its job perfectly. The Jathik fleet tried to fight back, but they couldn't protect 200 stars simultaneously. Earth's forces were too spread out, too coordinated. The Jathik sent desperate messages. They offered surrender. They promised to release all prisoners. They begged for mercy. Admiral Chen Wei deleted the messages without responding. Her orders were clear. No communication, no negotiation, complete destruction. A junior officer approached her station. Admiral, we're getting reports from the rescue teams. They can't extract all the prisoners. There are too many. Millions are still trapped on worlds that are about to be destroyed. Chen Wei closed her eyes. Continue the operation. But, sir, those people are innocents. They're slaves like Commander Chen was. We're supposed to be saving them. We're saving as many as we can, Chen Wei said, her voice flat. But the mission doesn't stop. The stars die on schedule. The officer looked horrified. We're killing the people we came to rescue? No, Chen Wei said. The Jathik killed them when they built their civilization on slavery. We're just ending what they started. Across the galaxy, species watched in real time. The Jathik had broadcast networks that were interconnected with galactic communication systems. News feeds from 200 systems showed the same thing. Stars dying, planets evacuating, ships fleeing. Chaos and death on a scale no one had seen in 1,000,000 years. The Galactic Concordat held an emergency session. Representatives from 1,000 species gathered in their great council chamber. They watched Earth's attack with mounting horror. This is genocide, said the representative from the Sethel Harmony, an aquatic species known for their pacifism. We must condemn this action. We must sanction Earth. With what leverage? Asked the Vri Collective's representative. They just destroyed 200 star systems in 72 hours. What exactly are we going to threaten them with? They're using weapons that shouldn't exist, said an Archon mind, its digital consciousness manifesting as a hologram. I recognize that technology. It's ancient, pre-concordat. We banned these weapons specifically because they make war too terrible. Clearly Earth didn't get that message, the Vri replied. The debate raged, but it was meaningless. The Jathik Dominion was already gone. Within 3 days, all 200 systems were rendered uninhabitable. The total death toll was estimated at 140 billion Jathik, plus another 30 billion enslaved beings from other species who couldn't be evacuated in time. An entire interstellar civilization erased from existence. The largest mass death event in recorded galactic history. Marcus's shuttle docked with an Earth carrier called the Righteousness. He was processed through medical, debriefed by intelligence officers, and assigned quarters. Through it all, he moved like a robot, his mind unable to process what had happened. That night, alone in his cabin, he pulled up the rescue statistics. His team had saved approximately 14 million beings from Jathik labor camps. 14 million lives. set against 170 billion dead. He'd been the justification, the spark. One human captured, and Earth had responded by burning down 200 suns. Marcus put his head in his hands and wept. Not for himself, not for his suffering, but for the billions who died because he existed, because his government decided his life was worth more than an entire civilization. In the command center of the Righteousness, Admiral Chen Wei received confirmation that all Earth vessels had withdrawn from Jothic space. The mission was complete. Not a single star remained capable of supporting life. She drafted her report for the United Earth Council. Mission accomplished. Commander Chen recovered. Prisoners freed. Enemy neutralized. She didn't mention the nightmares she knew would come. The faces of children dying on distant worlds. The parents clutching their young as gravity tore them apart. The artists and musicians and ordinary people who'd lived quiet lives and died screaming. That wasn't in the report. That was just the price of being human in a hostile galaxy, the price of making sure no one ever mistook humanity for prey again. Earth's message to the galaxy came 12 hours after the last Jothic star died. It was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every known language, sent to every species that had ears to hear or eyes to read. This is Earth. We did not want this. We came to your galaxy seeking friendship and cooperation. We extended our hand peacefully. That hand was struck. One of our people was taken, enslaved, and marked for death. We asked for his return. We were mocked. So we made a choice. We chose certainty over hope. We chose survival over acceptance. Commander Marcus Chen is worth more than 200 stars. Every human is worth more than any civilization that would harm them. This is not a threat. This is a fact. We offer friendship to all peaceful species. But we will never be prey. Remember the Jothic. Remember what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness. The message ended. No one replied. What could they say? Within 24 hours, Earth received 347 requests for non-aggression pacts. Species that had never heard of humanity before suddenly wanted treaties guaranteeing they would never harm a human. Ever. The Galactic Concordat, which had been debating Earth's membership application for 5 years, held an emergency vote. Earth was granted full membership with a permanent seat on the Security Directorate. The vote was unanimous. No one wanted to be seen opposing the species that just committed the largest genocide in history. Marcus returned to Earth 3 weeks after his rescue. They flew him to Geneva in a private shuttle, keeping him away from cameras until the official ceremony. He was going to receive medals, commendations. They were calling him a hero. He felt like a war criminal. The ceremony was held in the Great Plaza outside the United Earth Council building. Thousands of people attended. Millions more watched on screens around the world. President Vasquez herself pinned the medals on his uniform. "You represent the best of humanity," she told him. "Cameras broadcasting every word. Your courage in captivity, your faith that Earth would not abandon you, inspires us all. Because of you, no human will ever be enslaved again." The crowd cheered. Marcus stood silent, his face blank. Afterward, in a private room, he confronted Vasquez directly. "I didn't ask for this. You murdered billions of people because of me." Vasquez's public smile disappeared. "We eliminated a threat. The Jothic built their empire on slavery. How many billions did they kill over their history? How many species did they destroy?" "That doesn't make what we did right," Marcus said. "No," Vasquez agreed, "but it makes what we did necessary. The galaxy understands one thing: power. We tried joining as equals. We were ignored. We tried peaceful diplomacy. Our diplomat was enslaved. So we showed them power so absolute that they'll never test us again. In 50 years, when Earth is thriving and humans are safe on every world, you'll understand." "I'll understand that we became monsters," Marcus replied. "That's all I'll ever understand." He walked out of the meeting, and never wore his uniform again. He submitted his resignation from Earth's diplomatic corps the next day. It was accepted without comment. But not everyone on Earth celebrated. In cities across the planet, protests erupted. Millions of people took to the streets carrying signs that read, "Not in our name," and "Genocide is not defense." In Berlin, protesters occupied the government district for 3 weeks. In Lagos, students organized a mass sit-in demanding the resignation of everyone involved in the attack order. In New Shanghai, a monument to the Jathic dead was built by volunteers, listing every one of the 200 destroyed stars. The counter-protests were just as large. People argued that Earth had finally ensured humanity's survival, that the Jathic got what they deserved, that sometimes you had to be willing to do terrible things to protect your own. The planet was divided. United Earth was more fractured than it had been in decades. In the wreckage of Jathic space, survivors gathered where they could. Several thousand Jathic had been off-world when the attack came. Merchants on distant stations, diplomats in foreign territories, scientists studying phenomena in neutral space. Families who'd moved away generations ago. They were all that remained of a civilization that had existed for 12,000 years. A young Jathic woman named Ketharal had been studying art history on a concordant research station when the news came. Her family had been on Jathic Prime. Her parents, her siblings, her grandparents, all gone, vaporized when the planet was consumed by the collapsing star. She spent a week in her quarters, unable to eat or sleep. Then she started a project. She began collecting stories from other survivors, recording their memories, documenting what had been lost. She called the project The Rendered Stars, taking the name from what people were calling the dead zone where her civilization once lived. "We have to remember," she told other survivors. "Earth wants us to be a lesson, a warning, but we were people. We had art, music, literature. We had children who played in parks. We had parents who loved those children. We were not perfect. We did terrible things. But we were people, and people deserve to be remembered." The project grew. Thousands of survivors contributed their stories. Holographic recreations of Jathic cities, recordings of traditional music, archives of literature and philosophy, a memorial database that would ensure the Jathic weren't forgotten as just the species Earth destroyed. 6 months after the attack, Earth started receiving visitors from other species, not invaders or threats, diplomats, traders, scientists. Everyone wanted to meet the humans, to understand them, to make sure they stayed on humanity's good side. The Vree Collective, one of the galaxy's major trading powers, proposed a mutual defense pact. Earth's enemies would be Vree enemies. The aquatic Sethal Harmony, despite their pacifist nature, offered cultural exchange programs and educational partnerships. The militant Kryn hegemony, a warrior culture that had never lost a war, sent their greatest general to Earth just to shake hands with Admiral Chen Wei. But it wasn't friendship. It was fear dressed up as diplomacy. No one wanted to be Earth's friend. They wanted to avoid being Earth's next target. Then came a message that changed everything. The Archon Minds requested a meeting with Earth's leadership. The Archons were ancient, digital consciousnesses that had existed for billions of years. They rarely involved themselves in galactic affairs. When they spoke, people listened. President Vasquez, Admiral Chen Wei, and Director Okonkwo met with the Archons in a secure facility. The Archon manifested as a swirling pattern of light and sound, communicating directly with their minds. "We know where you got those weapons," the Archon said. "We recognize the technology. It belonged to the Varelic Empire, a civilization that died 5 million years before your species existed." "They left a cache," Okonkwo confirmed, "near Jupiter. We found it during our first faster-than-light experiment." "The Varelic followed the same path you're on now," the Archon explained. They made themselves the most feared species in the galaxy. They used overwhelming retaliation as doctrine. Anyone who threatened them was erased from existence. For 1,000 years it worked. No one dared oppose them. So what happened? Vasquez asked. They became paranoid, the Archon replied. When you're the most feared species in existence, you start seeing threats everywhere. Internal disagreements became potential rebellions. Political opponents became existential dangers. Eventually, they turned their weapons on themselves during a civil war. They destroyed their own civilization, trying to maintain absolute control. The room was silent. You're saying we'll do the same, Chen Wei said quietly. We're saying you're on the same path, the Archon replied. Fear is a tool, but it's a tool that corrodes everything it touches, including those who wield it. You've made the galaxy fear you, but fear breeds resentment. Resentment breeds resistance, and resistance will make you more paranoid, more willing to use your weapons, until eventually you destroy yourselves. What's the alternative? Vasquez asked. We tried peace. We got slavery. The alternative is being feared enough to be safe, but valued enough to be mourned if you disappeared, the Archon said. Right now, if Earth vanished tomorrow, most of the galaxy would celebrate. That's not security. That's a countdown to your destruction. The Archon's presence faded, leaving the three humans alone with their thoughts. Marcus heard about the Archon's warning through unofficial channels. He was living quietly in Nairobi now, working at a refugee center that helped beings displaced by various conflicts, including Jothic refugees. He'd met Kethral there. She'd come to interview him for her memorial project. Their first conversation had been tense, angry. She'd screamed at him, blaming him for her family's death. He'd stood and taken it because what could he say? She was right. But she kept coming back, and slowly, over weeks and months, they began to talk, really talk, about loss and guilt and the weight of being symbols for things they never chose. I don't forgive you, Kethral told him one evening, as they organized supply shipments for refugee camps. I don't forgive Earth. What your people did was evil. I know, Marcus replied. But I don't forgive my people either, she continued. We built our empire on slavery. We thought we were superior to everyone else. We took beings like you and broke them for profit. In a way, Earth just did to us what we'd been doing to others for millennia. That doesn't make it right, Marcus said. No, Kethral agreed. Nothing about any of this is right. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we're not supposed to find a way to make this right. Maybe we're just supposed to make sure it never happens again, to anyone. Marcus looked at her, this young woman who'd lost everything because of him. How do we do that? I don't know yet, Kethral said, but I think it starts with people like us, the ones who carry the scars. We're the only ones who understand what all of this really cost. Around them, the refugee center bustled with activity. Beings from dozens of species, all displaced by wars and conflicts, trying to rebuild their lives. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. A small light in the darkness humanity had created. 2 years after the destruction of the Jothic Dominion, Earth had become the most powerful and isolated species in the galaxy. Trade with other civilizations happened, but it was cold and transactional. No one visited Earth for pleasure. No humans were invited to cultural festivals or academic conferences. Humanity had achieved perfect safety through perfect loneliness. Marcus stood at the viewing window of Memorial Station Theta, looking out at the rendered zone. The station floated at the edge of what had once been Jothic space. 200 dead star systems stretched out before him, a graveyard that would remain lifeless for millions of years. Some systems now contained black holes. Others were scattered debris fields where planets had been torn apart. A few had collapsed stars slowly cooling in eternal darkness. This was Earth's legacy, the price of one human life, multiplied by horror. "It's beautiful in a terrible way," Kethral said, joining him at the window. She'd become co-director of the memorial project with Marcus. Together, they'd built this station as a permanent reminder of what had been lost. "I have nightmares about it," Marcus admitted. "Every night I see that sun collapsing. I see people running, children crying, and I can't do anything except watch." "Good," Kethral said bluntly. "You should have nightmares. We all should. That's how we remember. That's how we make sure it means something." A alert sounded on Marcus's datapad. Message from Earth marked urgent. He opened it and felt his blood go cold. "What is it?" Kethral asked. "Intelligence has discovered something," Marcus said, reading quickly. "A coalition of 7 species has been secretly developing weapons. Biological weapons, specifically designed to target human DNA. They've been working on it for 18 months. Kethral grabbed the pad and read the report herself. "The Vree are part of it, the ones who offered Earth a defense pact. They've been researching this the whole time. They're terrified," Marcus said. "All of them. They're so scared of us that they're willing to risk everything to develop a counter-weapon." Another message came through, this one from President Chen, who'd replaced Vasquez in the last election. "Commander Chen, please return to Earth immediately. Your presence is required for emergency council session." Marcus and Kethral took the fastest transport available. During the 3-day journey, they monitored news feeds from across the galaxy. The story had leaked. Everyone knew about the weapons development. Speculation was running wild about how Earth would respond. Some commentators predicted immediate retaliation. Earth would destroy those 7 species, just like they destroyed the Jothic. Others suggested Earth might show restraint, proving they weren't the monsters everyone feared. But most people expected war, because that's what fear does. It makes war inevitable. In Geneva, the emergency session of the United Earth Council was already underway when Marcus arrived. He'd been granted special observer status due to his unique experience. Kethral came with him as a representative of the Survivors Coalition, a group of Jothic refugees who'd become advocates for peaceful resolution of conflicts. Admiral Chen Wei, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, was presenting the military options. "We can neutralize the weapons facilities with surgical strikes," she explained, highlighting targets on a holographic display. "Minimal civilian casualties. We destroy their research and make it clear that any attempt to develop anti-human weapons will be met with immediate response." "And then what?" asked Council Member Okafor from the African Union. "They try again in secret? We strike again? How many times do we repeat this cycle?" "Until they learn," Chen Wei replied coldly. "Or until we become exactly what the Archons warned us about," said Council Member Zhao from the Asian Federation. "Paranoid, striking at shadows, destroying civilizations because we're scared they might hurt us someday." The debate raged for hours. Marcus sat silently, listening to people argue about whether to kill billions more beings. It was surreal, discussing mass death like it was a policy option, a strategic choice. Finally, President Chen called for order. "Commander Marcus Chen, you've been silent. You were the catalyst for our previous action. You've lived with the consequences. What do you think we should do?" Every eye in the chamber turned to Marcus. He stood slowly, feeling the weight of their attention. "I think we've already lost," he said quietly. 2 years ago, we had a chance to join the galaxy as friends, as partners. We could have built relationships based on mutual respect and shared interests. Instead, we chose fear. We made ourselves so terrifying that no one dares oppose us openly. He gestured at the intelligence report displayed in the center of the room. "But fear doesn't create peace. It creates this. Desperate species so scared of us that they're willing to commit suicide by Earth just to have a chance at defending themselves. We didn't make ourselves safe. We made ourselves into the thing everyone has to destroy or die trying. So what's your solution?" Admiral Chenwei challenged. We disarm? Make ourselves vulnerable again? No, Marcus said. We do something harder. We become worth keeping alive. He pulled out his own data pad and projected a new image into the room. This is the humanitarian core proposal. I've been working on it with representatives from a dozen species, including Jathic survivors. It's a massive aid organization, funded by Earth, staffed by volunteers from all species. We provide disaster relief, medical assistance, infrastructure development, education, anywhere in the galaxy. No political strings, no military agenda, just help. That's naive, someone said from the back of the chamber. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But here's the thing. Right now, if Earth disappeared tomorrow, most of the galaxy would celebrate. We need to change that. We need to become the civilization that helps when disasters strike, that brings medicine when plagues spread, that rebuilds homes after wars. We need to be feared, yes, but we also need to be valued. President Chen studied the proposal. This would cost trillions, decades of resources, and there's no guarantee it would work. There's no guarantee any of this works, Marcus replied, but I know what definitely doesn't work. Killing everyone who scares us. That path ends with us alone in the galaxy, surrounded by the ghosts of civilizations we destroyed, waiting for the day we turn our weapons on ourselves. Kethrall stood up. I'm a Jathic. My people enslaved Commander Chen. Earth killed my entire family in response. I have every reason to hate humanity, to want revenge, to support any effort to destroy you. She looked around the chamber. But I've spent 2 years working with Marcus, helping refugees from conflicts across the galaxy. And I've learned something. Humans aren't monsters. You're people. Scared, angry people who made a terrible choice and now have to live with it. Just like my people were, just like every species in this galaxy. Her voice grew stronger. The Jathic are gone because we forgot that being powerful doesn't make you right. Don't let Earth die because you forgot that being feared doesn't make you safe. You want to honor my people's memory? Then learn from our mistake. Build something better than we did. The chamber was silent. Then Council Member Zhao spoke. I propose we table the military response. Give the humanitarian core proposal a chance. 1 year. If these 7 species continue weapons development despite our aid efforts, we can revisit military options. The vote was close, but it passed. 6 months later, the first humanitarian core mission deployed to the Viri Collective. A plague was spreading through their aquatic cities, killing thousands. Earth sent medical teams with advanced treatments and volunteers to help care for the sick. The Vri expected a trap. They waited for Earth to demand something in return. But the humans just worked. They saved lives. They asked nothing. When the plague was contained, the Vri Council issued a statement. We were developing weapons against Earth because we feared them. After working alongside human volunteers for 6 months, we fear them less. We still fear what they're capable of, but we also value what they can be. They weren't the only ones. Over the next year, the Humanitarian Corps responded to 17 major disasters across the galaxy. They evacuated a colony threatened by a dying star. They provided emergency food aid to a species suffering crop failures. They helped rebuild infrastructure on a world devastated by civil war. And slowly, grudgingly, the galaxy's opinion of humanity began to shift. Not to love, not even to full trust, but to something more complex. Fear mixed with respect, caution mixed with hope. Marcus stood on Memorial Station Theta once again, 3 years after the Jathic genocide. The station had expanded. It was no longer just a memorial. It was also a research facility studying the dead systems, looking for ways to potentially revive them someday. Scientists from a dozen species worked there, including both humans and the remaining Jathic. Kethrall's daughter, born 2 years after the genocide, played in the station's garden dome. She'd never seen her grandmother's homeworld. She never would. But she was growing up in a place where humans and Jathic worked together, building something new from the ashes of the old. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Kethral asked Marcus as they watched the child play. "Choosing cooperation over revenge?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "Sometimes I think we're just delaying the inevitable, that eventually fear will win and everyone will try to destroy everyone else." "Maybe," Kethral said, "but every day we delay that, every person we help, every bridge we build, that's a day humanity isn't alone with its ghosts. That has to count for something." An alert chimed. Both of them checked their datapads simultaneously. A new message. From deep space. "Unknown vessel detected," Marcus read. "Primitive faster-than-light drive. Broadcasting first contact greetings. They're asking if anyone out there is friendly." A new species. Just discovered FTL travel. About to meet the galaxy for the first time. They had no idea what kind of universe they'd just exposed themselves to. "What do you think Earth will say?" Kethral asked. Marcus looked out at the rendered zone. 200 dead stars, a reminder of what humanity was capable of when pushed. Then he looked at the garden where Kethral's daughter played with human children. A reminder of what humanity could choose to become. "I think," he said slowly, "that depends on whether we've learned anything, whether we can greet them as friends rather than as predators or prey." He sent a message to Earth Command, recommending first contact protocols, not military ones, diplomatic ones, with the humanitarian corps ready to assist if needed. The response came back quickly. Approved. Send peaceful greetings, offer assistance, establish dialogue. It wasn't much. It wasn't redemption for the billions dead. But it was a choice. A small choice to be something other than the monsters who'd burned 200 suns. Marcus watched his message transmit into deep space, reaching out to the new species with friendship rather than fear. Maybe they'd earned it. Maybe they hadn't. But they were trying. And in a galaxy still haunted by the rendered zone, still remembering the 3 days when humanity showed what it truly was, trying was all they had left. The memorial station's lights reflected off the viewport, mixing with the darkness of dead stars beyond. In that mixture of light and shadow, Marcus saw the future, not clear, not certain, but possible. Humanity would always be remembered for the Jathic genocide. That stain would never wash away. But maybe, with enough time and enough effort, they could become known for something else too. Not the species that destroyed civilizations, but the species that chose, eventually, to stop.